So I think it's a time to start. It's 6 o'clock. Well, at least in the Netherlands it is. So I'm really curious where you are all around the globe, being there in different time zones, maybe even in the middle of the night participating in this session on professionalizing data stewardship. So welcome again. My name is Maaike Jette. I'm one of the co-chairs of this really new interest group on professionalizing data stewardship. And today we have our first formal session as an interest group. Well, we had previous session as birds of a feather sessions already, but really nice to have our first formal interest group meeting. So I'm going to do the introduction, but after this I'm handing over to a few of my co-chair colleagues who will do the different parts of the other parts of the presentation. So just for starters, some housekeeping notes. So first of all, it's really nice to have so many people on board for this session. I'm excited to see so many of you, and wonderful that you found time to take part in our efforts to professionalize data stewardship. So first of all, thumbs up for yourself for joining this session. And I've included a relevant link already in the chat, and my colleagues will copy and paste it again for those who enter the room later. We have a collaborative session notes document with all the links, and that also includes the link to this presentation if you want to follow it up or read it afterwards. As Farsha already mentioned, so please add your name to the participants list so we can see who all attended this session, and we can contact you for further collaboration. And we have a shared notes document, and in that we'll together jointly take the notes. So please help the group to take those collaborative notes so we can make them as complete as possible. So thank you for that joint effort. So just a few basics. So the session is being recorded and it will be made available on the RDA website. So if you don't want to be recorded, please put off your video just to make sure. And please also mute yourself when not talking. But we have a fairly big part on discussion. So please, in that part, actively join the chat function and the active talking function. Raise your hand, give comments, ask questions, and engage in the session by asking anything that is relevant to you. So either using the chat or taking part in the active discussion. There is also the possibility for this session to have it translated in Spanish. So if you want to listen to the Spanish version, there is this button in the bar you can click and it magically will be translated into Spanish. So this is a really great thing happening at this RDA, really nice functionality. So what we will do today, we have 4 parts. So this is the introduction part. And then after the introduction, we will give an update on the different task groups we have on professionalizing data stewardship and explain a bit about their challenges they're currently tackling. Then we will have a discussion in which we talk about interdependencies and the priorities of the different task groups. And then we will end the session with talking about our next steps and the formal closure. And each of those parts will be presented by one of the co-chairs. Just a little bit of background for those who just joined the RDA. So big thanks to the RDA organization for organizing and facilitating this session. And if you are new to the RDA, please check out the RDA for Newcomers webpage. And this is a great opportunity to exchange anything happening in the community globally, with over 10,000 members of 145 countries. So the RDA is a really nice effort to share about anything happening, developing, adopting, infrastructure, data sharing. So there are a lot of things happening in the RDA community, and we are really happy that with this interest group, we're part of that global effort. So this session is organized by the Professionalising Data Stewardship Interest Group, and we are about to become formally endorsed, or we might have been already endorsed as an interest group. And we have recently appointed also co-chairs for this group, and it's really nice to have this big group of enthusiastic co-chairs to help the community to think about the challenges on professionalizing data stewardship. However, in addition to those really active co-chairs, we need the community to make professionalizing data stewardship a community effort. So you're really welcome to join us, not only in this session, but also in via our webpage, via, for instance, our Slack community. And if you have questions and ideas, and if you want to collaborate, make sure to contact you. We have a big part of discussion today, so we will definitely shout out to you as well. And I'm pretty sure my colleagues will put the link to the Slack channel and the web page also in they're in the notes session actually, but put them in the chat for those who want to sign up immediately for our web page and Slack community. You are very welcome to join. So I want to present all of the co-chairs of this group. So we recently established and, well, we recently appointed those co-chairs, and it's really good to see that this already became a very active community among the co-chairs, trying to reach out to the bigger community. So I just quickly, we've included all of the co-chairs in our slide deck. So, well, I've already introduced myself, but we have some of the co-chairs who could join today, some unfortunately couldn't join because it's either in the middle of the night or yeah, they're in different sessions. So we have Peter Nish from Australia. We have Romain David from France. We are very happy with Nicholas as well, who is online as well from South Africa. We have Mohammed from Spain. We have Deborah online as well today, and Varsha already spoke out to the community at the beginning. Really nice to have those people as co-chairs as well. Then we have Jan, who will be presenting part today, just as Varsha and Deborah will. And we have Michelle and Christina from the United States. So I think we already have a bit of diversity over the globe within our co-chairs community. We're happy to hear from the bigger community. So if you have any questions or you want to contact one of those co-chairs, feel free. There is a lot of information under the links connecting to their LinkedIn accounts, and you can contact them personally using their email addresses as well if you want to connect or have questions. Then why? Just a little bit of background on the why and the need for data stewardship interest group. So we've noticed in the past that there's a lack of consensus on the responsibility, the knowledge and the skills of data stewards, while they are really essential in research. And also a coherent approach and dedicated training for data steward is lacking as well. And if you combine that with aspects as funding, this really limits its vital developments in recruiting procedures and career paths. So lots of reasons to well, establish a professionalizing data stewardship interest group. We have a bit of background. So we had a Birds of a Feather session at P14 already, and at the virtual Melbourne 15 plenary, we also had a Birds of a Feather session. Lots of, I think almost over 80 people joining that session. So that was a really nice effort. And we've been writing a charter for all the efforts and challenges we will be tackling over the coming years. And we had a survey as well. And based on that background, we identified 8 challenges: business case, terminology, models, job profiles, training, career tracks, networking and certification, and also the need for webinars. And we will talk about those different challenges lots of time in this session. So then, what are the plans? So for the upcoming 12 months, we've written in our charter that we're going to launch officially the RDA interest group, which we will do today, which we actually did today. So this is the official launch of our RDA interest group. And we will formalize task groups. We kind of formalize them already. So you will see that in the Slack community, we have active groups of people working on the different challenges and task groups. But today we will talk more about how to prioritize those topics and define the deliverables. So that's work we will be doing today. And then continuous work, just as prioritizing those topics and define the deliverables, we will start working and reporting on the outcomes. And we plan to organize webinars to promote the work of the interest group, and of course communicate and align with the various stakeholders and the different projects in and outside the Research Data Alliance community, because we find synergies, fostering those synergies globally on data stewardship very important. So that was the introduction. Are there any questions? So no questions yet. I can't see the chat now, but I'm trusting my co-chairs that they will shout out.
There's a question here. What is a task group compared to a working group?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we will talk about the different task groups later on, but just some basic information. So it could either be a working group, but we chose the very practical approach of having non-formalized task groups. So it will probably be a bit of the same as a formal working group, but we're not taking the administrative efforts, well, right now. But if we need to take those formal administrative processes and become formal working groups, that's a possibility as well to be discussed under the among the co-chairs and the community. But for now, working groups and task groups in practice will, in this interest group, be the same.
I think Kevin has raised his hand, would like to speak.
Yeah, thanks. Really just a follow-up on that. So you're saying that the possibility of making these task groups into formal working groups is still an open question? Because I think in terms of how RDA works, and in particular getting formal adoption of the outputs, it might be useful for us to go down that route, even if it is a bit more overhead. And it will also ensure that, and that model of having an interest group that spins off individual working groups but coordinates them is one that's well understood within how RDA works. I think it has some advantages for us.
Yeah, perfectly agree, Kevin. So that was also the reason why I said this is still a road to follow. But we're already very happily that we could work on for now under the term task groups, but to get the output formally acknowledged, I think a working group is indeed has benefits. So we will take this approach into our next co-chairs meetings and discuss what to do to formalize those, I don't know, maybe top 3 or top 4 task groups into formal working groups. So thanks, Kevin. It's a really good addition. So if there are...
There is another question in the chat from Mario Lane. I think it's a she. So she asked for research group. So who is more appropriate to take on data stewardship work? Is there any background that is preferred or needed for being a data steward?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question as well. If that's all right, we might want to take that into the task group update and discussion part, because that's a few of the task groups indeed touch upon they all touch upon professionalizing data stewardship, but also an aspect of competences and training, for instance, and also terminology. That's one of the challenges. So if that's all right, I kind of move it along to the discussion, and we'll make sure to come back to that. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, but a very good question, because that's exactly one of those challenges. So if it's all right, I'll give the floor to one of the co-chairs, so Varsha, and she will update you on the different, well, for now, task groups and their challenges. So the floor is yours, Varsha.
Thanks, Micah. Okay, can everyone see my screen? It's the same screen that Micah was sharing a minute ago, but I just thought it'd be easier if I did it because there's a little bit of animation that is easier for me to do as I speak. So I've been asked to talk about what the different task groups are doing and where we've got to so far. And so let me introduce the task groups to start with. So these task groups came about based on the challenges that were identified in the survey that was carried out. So we have the challenges as have been described already. So the first task group is looking at the business case. The second one is looking at terminologies. We then have a task group looking at the models, job profiles, training, career tracks, networking and certification. And then we also have a task group looking at potentially putting together webinars. And I think what I'll do next is I'll go through each of the task groups and what they are doing, and also how they interweave with each other too. So let me go to the next case. So for thinking about the business case for a data steward, the challenge is that there's lots of organizations that are using data for research analysis, but often they're not aware that they need someone with data stewardship expertise. So what this task group is planning to do is pull together case studies to highlight the benefits of data stewardship for those stakeholders, and also potentially provide some kind of risk assessment as what might go wrong if data stewardship expertise is lacking. And I think we might all be aware there's been some really interesting examples, certainly in the UK, of poor data management, which ended up in the news recently with regard to missing COVID cases. So in terms of outputs expected from this group, they're expecting to pull together stakeholder maps. So they're going to do a stakeholder mapping exercise, and also to pull together case studies for the use of data stewards in business. So this will help to then put the case to businesses for the need for data stewards. The second task group is terminology. And as you might expect, in order to build that business case, we need to make sure we're using a common language, and hence you can see that the work of task group 1 depends on the work of task group 2. We need to have the terminology in order to then build that business case. So the terminology group are thinking about how to bring together the different terminology that's been used across all these different organizations and across different domains. Different people are using different terminology. Their plan is to reuse existing work from RDA and other places, and to enrich existing tools, to interact with the other task groups as needed to find the definitions that are needed, and then to formalize a community approval process to choose those better definitions. So things that they're expecting as outcomes is a data stewardship terminology that has been validated, and potentially a first version of a minimal set of common definitions and terms. And ideally we are data stewards after all, ideally this will end up in a linked open data vocabulary set. We also need to then think about models of data stewardship, and that leads on to the work of task group 3. So task group 3, the challenge that they're dealing with is that at the moment models for data stewardship service provision are ill-defined, which can lead to duplication of efforts and the implementation of inappropriate strategies for data stewardship. So the way in which this task group have decided to go about this is to do a scan of data stewardship and governance staffing models using open business model canvas methodology, to develop a representative collection of real-world reusable models. So they're expecting, as a result of this work, to build a collection of data stewardship models, which would, as you can see, make sense, will then feed into the business case use case there. So we know that there are lots of contexts in data stewardship. We know that data stewards exist in many different contexts around different disciplines, for example, but we don't necessarily understand the similarities and the differences. So then we have task group 4, who are looking at job profiles. So their particular challenge is to understand the data steward role in different working environments and contexts. And they're going to go about doing this by collecting job profiles of data stewards and all of the roles that are explicitly mentioning data stewardship, and then review and existing work and previous work on this topic. And expected outcomes are going to be a library of job profiles and ideally an analysis of those profiles to build a matrix of commonalities and differences within those job profiles. And as you might expect, the job profiles feed into the business case, while the terminology and models outputs are going to be important for the job profiles work. This is just to give you an indication of some of the interdependencies that we see here in the task groups we have. Another really important challenge for data stewards, as identified in the survey, is training. At the moment, there's a limited coherent approach, making that demand for data stewards challenging. And I think that was shown in the question we were just asked. What do you need? What background do you need to be a data steward? And at the moment, it just depends completely on who's written that job profile. So what this group is going to do is they're going to, again, collaborate with other initiatives that have got similar aims. They're going to be surveying existing tools and lists using RDA terminology and models, and their expected outcomes are going to be a database, a library of existing training for data stewardship, perhaps build a set of training pathways. And then really importantly, I feel, is that they're also going to be then doing this gap analysis to identify and make recommendations where there seems to be training material missing. And again, you can imagine that the output of the business case is going to be then important for training, because we need to make sure we're training the next generation of data stewards to meet the needs of business. The 6th task group is looking at career tracks. And so their challenge is to do with the limited visibility of data stewardship as a career path. So what do new recruits need to know? How to enter the profession and how to progress once you are in that profession. I think we are all aware of data stewards kind of working in isolation and not necessarily knowing that there's a defined career pathway for them. So what this task group is intending to do is to interview data stewards about how they got into their profession and their career development, and then collate existing published profiles and articles about data stewards. And their expected outcomes are to build like composite personas of data stewards at different stages in their careers and in different sectors. And they're expecting to build a library of case studies on careers. And of course, if we look at the intersectionality again here, it makes sense that the careers tracks outputs are going to be important for the training task group in terms of what potential different training might be needed at different points in a data steward's career. And the output of the career tracks training group is also obviously going to be important for the business case in order to build that business case to say, hey, you know, this is the kind of person you need in your business to really make the most of the data you're collecting. So as I said earlier, we know that data stewards are often working in isolation within an organization. You might only have 1 or 2 people working on data stewardship. And so, and as identified by the survey, there's a real need for networking. And so this is the focus of task group 7. So the networking task group will intending to go about looking at how to build a data steward network, to explore the need for that, for the sharing of knowledge and practice. And they're going to be doing this again by collecting case studies, by interviewing data stewards and related communities, and investigating models of community formation and practice exchange to really think about how good practice communities are actually built. Expected outcomes from this, they're going to be synthesizing the information that they've gathered through case studies and interviews, but also they're looking to see how they themselves can create networking opportunities. So the idea is that this task group will then create networking opportunities for data stewards. I think their initial step is thinking about something like a quarterly informal online gathering. And then we have the last task group, which is looking at certification. And so the challenge here was to explore the need for certification for training programs and for data stewards. And so the idea, the way that this task group is intending to go about this is to collaborate with existing industry research, accreditation frameworks and badging systems. They're going to investigate lightweight certification, such as gamified badging. And they're going to be investigating how one goes about recognizing the skills and expertise of a data steward. Expected outcomes from this is a self-assessment checklist for data stewards, including at different levels, so maybe beginner, intermediate, advanced, and then to put together a set of recommendations for certification and badging for training a data stewards. And obviously the outputs of certification and training, you can see they go together, that they both are going to impact on each other. And then lastly, we also have a group that's dedicated to putting on webinars for the data steward community. So you can imagine this goes across all of the other task group, the work of all of the other task groups. The challenge for this task group is to identify the audience and the value and the need for webinars among research data stewards, to assess whether webinars perhaps are provided elsewhere. Again, looking at maybe what the training and the networking task group are doing, and then the intention is to coordinate with other interest group task groups within this interest group, and then put together a series of recommendations for webinar topics, and then present those and create those. I'm going to pause here. Are there any questions at this point before I move on?
Not questions as such, Varsha. Perhaps just to say, oh, there is one from Fiona. Question: do you have an order? Do we have an order?
As in an order of, maybe Fiona, you could unmute and ask.
I will, sorry. Yeah. I was just looking at this really comprehensive map, and I'm wondering if you were thinking about the interdependencies. I guess it sort of looked to me perhaps like terminology might come first, and networking could run along the whole way, but you might have to do terminology before models and before job profiles, for instance. So yeah, I just wondered how far you got in that thinking.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And yes, the answer is yes, that absolutely, we are starting to think about the order in which to do things, and that's part of what we're hoping to get from this session as well, is to kind of help for you, the community, to help us decide what's the most important thing to get started with, and then work on those things. Thank you for that. Wolmar, you have your hand raised.
Yes, so I'm kind of curious on the models compared to job profiles and career tracks, since I guess the models are based on research or something like that, which is probably based on career tracks or some interviews with practicing data stewards. So these kind of overlap quite a lot, I would suspect. And what's how did you come up with this, and do you have any kind of idea on how to separate these?
All very good questions. I'm going to let others of my co-chairs maybe come in there, because they've been more involved in actually pulling together these different task groups. Nicholas, do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, sorry, I can't see the icon, so I'm just doing it manually.
Perfect.
For the video. Thanks for the question, Volma. I think we spent, I'm chairing the models group, so I'm answering for that. We spent quite a bit of time initially in the first meetings talking about just that. And I think it was a wonderful puzzling exercise because we actually uncovered what are potential outputs. And I think that's where Varsha wants to take us in her presentation still. And maybe then it'll become quite clear. But we kind of at the moment feel very dependent on a good set of standardized terminology, but we're not the same as institutions, which we see more related to business case, and we're not the same as jobs either, because we consider that it's jobs in context. So for argument's sake, a model could be applied in a university library that is applied elsewhere, you know, in another context that is not a university library, and it might just be a good fit. If I can make it very, very, you know, harsh, it's probably not that likely, but it's conceivable that you have different models of data stewardship services applied at similar institutions, for instance. So it's not quite the same as a job profile, neither is it the same as an institution. I hope I said that in a less confusing way.
Thanks so much, Nicholas, for stepping in there. Okay, so I wanted to just end with just summarizing what the task groups are asking for from this community, from the RDA. And so already we heard there's quite a lot of similarities in what these different task groups are doing in terms of looking for case studies and looking for potentially people to interview. So I'll just go through what each of these groups are looking for. So the business case are looking for feedback on their approach, feedback on the stakeholders that they've identified, and looking for convincing cases for that group. The terminology group are also looking for feedback on their approach and looking for examples of related work. So if this group that are here at this session know of examples of terminology use where people are looking at data stewardship, please do get in touch with that task group. Task group 3 are looking for advice on existing work from other interest groups within the RDA. The job profiles group are looking for job descriptions. So if you have data steward, or if you know of a data steward job title and you have that job profile, please do share that with the task group 4. And also if you're aware of any other related work looking at job profiles for data stewards, please do share that. Task group 5, the training group, are looking for references to existing training databases, looking for additional work and calling for participation. So if you'd like to join that task group, they're looking for people to come and be active in helping to define what a data stewardship training looks like. The career tracks group are looking for feedback on the usefulness of the outcomes that they've proposed, sectors that they maybe need to target, and they're also looking to start recruiting interviewees and volunteers for that work. The networking group again are also making a call for participation. So if you'd like to join that group, please do so, and keep an eye on them for networking events. They're expecting to put some networking events together quite soon. The certification group are asking the RDA for projects, people with certification expertise. If you are aware of anyone with expertise in certification or are aware of any efforts to do that, please do share with them. And the task group 9, the webinars group, are looking for ideas of webinars that they could run. So if you have identified a need for a particular webinar, please do let them know. And I should just say, I think we've shared the slide deck. We will share the slide deck at the end of this. And at the back of the slide deck, there's an appendix where each of these task groups have put more detail about their challenges and their expected outcomes and what they need from the RDA community. So I'd encourage everyone to please do have a look at that. I'll hand over to Jan.
Thanks very much Farsha, for the nice introduction of each task groups. So next we'll start with the discussion. So this is really nice occasion to have so many community members joining all together at the same time. And then the central topic of today's discussion is dependencies and priority. So that's actually exactly already mentioned by a few questions in the chat. So I'll first share my screen. Can you see my screen? So we will do the discussion partially in Mentimeter and partially we'll return back to the shared note. So if you see my screen, so please go to menti.com and use the code 367716. So I hope one of my fellow co-chairs can add the code into the chat. So if you are there, give us an indication by either give us a heart. We'll just wait for a few seconds to let everybody there and get ready. I see the hearts are coming in. Thank you very much. So I see people are joining, so I can first go to outline slides. So there will be a three part for our today's discussion. So first part is more basic. So we would like to just to know more about from you. So who are there and why you are joining today. So basic information, let everybody be aware that who is listening, who are we talking with. And the second part, we're gonna go into try to discover some interdependencies between the task groups. As just really exactly as what's been discussed, there are definitely overlap and dependencies between the different tasks. Some of them Farsha already presented to those some obvious link, but there might also be other links. So that's we're gonna try to discover today in the second part. And the third part, we will, based on each task group's request from the RDA community, we will try to further identify if there are any existing relevant work and what kind of contribution each task group need and what you can bring to the task group. So let's first start with the easy introductory part. Just get to know a bit more about you. So please tell us or tell each other, where are you from? You can indicate either the country, your city, or other your preferred way of telling others. Also, might be also interesting to see at this hour, because since it's a global international event, to see where people from available and up at this hour. It's great to see Costa Rica is the majority of participants. That's really gives a bit more realistic feeling of having this plenary in the actual location. And Europe, America, South Africa, yes, of course, Brazil, Europe, Cape Town. It's really nice to see a global representation in this session. Any more input? So I think we are here. We are ready with these questions. So then let's move to the next. So what is your job function or your role? So are you already a data steward? Are you doing something similar related to data stewardship? Yeah, editor, of course. That's also a very relevant role. Nice to see there are also students, so probably potential data stewards. Researchers, project manager, data curator, data steward. So nice to see also data steward is kind of majority here as well. So although there are different terms of describing it, I guess that's also one task for the terminology task group. Oh, wow. It's really nice, beautiful word cloud. I can see some people probably have multiple jobs or roles. We have 90 participants, but we have 97 already input. Interesting to see. Already see some connected, related roles there. Oh, wow. Yes, please enter your final input within the next 5 seconds. Very interesting to see. Thank you so much for so actively participating in this discussion. Okay, 111. I think that's a number. We stop here. Very interesting work everybody is doing. Yeah. So in addition to tell what role you have, maybe if you could tell a bit more about the field, your field of expertise. This is probably also related to maybe task groups training or job profile to see for, of course, we have more people here other than data steward, but it's also nice to see some relevant skills for certain jobs and roles. Making statistics. Data publishing, computer science, data analytics. It's also nice to see there is really diverse, there are diverse disciplinary, so people with different disciplinary background here. Networking, transportation, climate services. Interesting. Yeah, hopefully there will be more and more different fields also realizing, acknowledging the importance of data stewardship. So we do also need the domain experts in data stewardship and data management in general. Very beautiful cloud. And of course, data management is the central field of expertise for this community. It's nice to have another confirmation here. So active input is changing every second. Okay, still continuing.
It's because we all have so many jobs. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably also something because now for a few years, people it's been discussing nowadays professionals, experts are really like a T shape. So it's not just that you focus on your own solo in the disciplinary, but also it's like you cross all different disciplines. That's probably also this word cloud also a confirmation there. Okay, I think we can move to the next one. Unless there's some last minute input. Okay, yes. Okay, just for the time, let's move to the next one. Yeah, so have you participated in the earlier session of this interest group? So we had two bird of feather sessions before. So this is actually the third time we discuss on this topic. So just let us know how familiar with the group. Nice to see we have people joined this discussion since the very beginning, but also many new participants today. So that also, I think, proves this topic is really interesting these days. Okay, interesting. Maybe we wait for like a couple of more seconds in case new input here. Okay, so the majority here today is the first time joining this session. So I hope you get a good impression about all the different task groups and also the general concept and focus of this interest group. If you couldn't remember what you just heard, you can check the slides and you will definitely discuss a bit more during the next hour. So for sure you'll get more familiar with all the different topics under this group. Let's move to the next. So what's your motivation of joining this session? What really captured your attention or interest in this interest group? Please share. Curious. That's probably one of the best motivations for everything. Project application, training opportunities, community building. You're working on similar topics, make things better. Better understanding of the data steward profile, knowledge exchange, similar effort. Push topic forward, knowledge exchange, professionalization, a similar experience. Needs for data steward should be recognized as an important career. That's indeed that's very nice motivation and also one of the major objectives of this group. Developing data stewardship, help promoting data stewardship in your organization, working together, networking, exchange information, working on similar topic, become a data steward. That's also very nice. Thank you. Making community. These are all very beautiful motivations. I'm interested to know why data stewardship is not already professionalized. That's an interesting motivation. I think we'll find out. I hope some of the challenges mentioned so far answered a little bit to this question, but indeed, that's also something we need to find out if we want to professionalize this profession. Oh, more coming up. Matching topics, also very relevant subjects. Networking event opportunities. Yeah, many different initiatives in other local situations. So nice to bring them all together in a broader community. Build a profession. Professionalizing this data stewardship. Very nice. It's so nice to see so many active and enthusiastic messages here. We will also share this as a Menti result so everyone can get an access to check it again. Nice. So let's move to the next part. So this will be the second part of discussion. So it's about the dependencies between different task groups. This is the nice diagram Farshad showed earlier. And these dependencies between the groups is indeed can be observed already from the objectives or tasks performed or planned by each group. And if I recall a question from earlier, so for example, if there is any order between the task groups, there might be. That's really what we would like to find out, because on one hand, each group have their own set objectives, and all the task groups start working in parallel. Of course, due to the overlap and due to maybe common challenges and due to the potential relations or connections between them, it's always nice to discover the connections and find them out, and to see if some work can be better scheduled, better coordinated. So that's really the second part of the discussion we would like to focus on. And in order to do that, we would not be able to discover all the connections for sure within half an hour discussion, but we would like to do a small exercise with all of you together. So what we're gonna do now is I will just show all the steps all together. So we'll try to start pairing the task groups. So step one, so please first pick one group that's of your interest. So either the group you are already working in or the group that you find the most interest in. So step one, pick one group of your interest. Step two, based on your choice in step one, please if you could recall what you just heard today, since most of people here first time joining this group. So based on your choice in step one, please find another group that you think either their work is related to your step one choice, or their output or could be contributing to the task of the group you chose in step one. And we will repeat it 3 times. So you have three times to pick 3 interest group and then find a connection to that interest group. I hope that is clear. And if not, we will firstly do a test. So we will run a test run to find your group, pick a group and find a connection to that group. And then we will do your formal choosing of the 3 groups. Is there any question? Or we run the test run first, then see how it works. So here you can see these are all 9 groups here. So please pick one. So this is a test run. So please pick one that you're most interested in or the group you are working in. This is test run, so your choice would not be counted. So please feel free to make your choice. I can see the training is really a popular one. I will wait for a few more seconds, so there could be delay if there are many inputs coming in at the same time. Okay, so since I will move to next, since we just want to see if the test run is working. So remember what you choose in this page. And then based on your choice, and here, please select another task group that is connected to your choice earlier. So the connection could be any kind of connection. They can share common interest. They can contribute to each other by producing their own output.
So we just see the numbers on our slides, not the names.
You don't see the names?
On the second slide. On the first slide, we saw the names, but on the second, we're just seeing numbers.
Yeah, but can you see the index here?
It's a bit difficult to read, but it is there, yeah.
Oh, sorry for that. Oh, if you can also open the shared slides, the presentation slides, you will also find an overview of the number and the task groups names.
Yeah, well, it's a good idea we've done the test, because now we know we have to do
yeah
that.
Yeah, sorry, but that's a very nice reminder. Thank you. Yeah, so this is the test. So in the next, you will repeat this action 3 times. We couldn't really review the result at the moment, but afterwards we'll analyze the result and we'll come up, we'll summarize it, and we will share the result of the connections between task groups after this plenary. So if everyone, if it's working for everyone and you know how to do it, then let's run the official, how to say it, official choosing. So your top interest, you can still pick the same one as you did in the test run. I see the training is still the possible, a very popular option here. And also terminology, job profiles, business case, followed by career tracks, models, and networking, certification, webinars. So training and terminology really occupy this main interest here. Yeah, due to the Menti setting, so every time you can only pick one. That's why we wanted to repeat it 3 times, so give more options for everyone to pick your top interest. Okay, yeah, now we get the first initial interest. Then let's move to the next one. Please choose the connection to your interest. So which other task group is related to the group you just chose? I can see job profiles apparently has the most connection with others, although I couldn't really tell this is based on which groups. And the models, data stewardship models also has a lot of connections with others. And then, of course, the terminologies and trainings. Also certification. It could very well be, because there were a lot of choices on trainings, then certification is relevant. That sounds logical. Okay, so if everyone has completed the first round, let's move to the next one. Yeah, so top interest number 2. Interest to see the second round, the interest has been further spread it a little bit, but still training job profiles are almost the top choices, and career tracks coming up. Okay, let's move to the next slides. I think we have all the votes here. So based on your second choice, which groups are connected, related, relevant? Now, career tracks is more connected with other groups. I'm a little bit hesitant to conclude here because I know there is a sophisticated statistical analysis behind it. So I can only observe based on this second round choice, the vote is further spreaded. I think we're missing a few more votes here. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it's almost complete. Thank you. So then we enter the third round, the last round. So please pick your number 3 top interest group. It's a bit hard to say which group is more important than the other one because they are all very important. I think that's based on the survey outcome from the previous sessions we had. That's why we think this is more important to see the connection. So let each task group be aware of the if there are some other groups working on similar things, or if they can benefit from other groups, or if they can contribute to other groups' work. Because eventually, within the interest group, the professionalizing data stewardship, so every task group contributes and really represent one aspect of the professionalization of a data stewardship. Okay, based on this round of input, the interest, let's just please indicate the connections. Yeah, by doing this small exercise, we also hope to see which are the top 3 most interesting topic or tasks among the community. It doesn't say it doesn't mean they are more important than the others, but maybe they are the ones who capture the most attention at the moment. So job profiles still get a lot of connection here in round 3. We'll promise we'll analyze this result and try to come up with a clear graph or representation of dependencies between task groups, and also the maybe the top 3 groups with the most interest. But again, I would like to emphasize that even there will be top 3 groups, all the task groups are equally important. They are all important subjects. Thank you very much for your vote here. We'll keep you updated about the results. So next part, the third part, we'll soon move back to the collaborative Google Note. It is about to identify relevant work to each task group and the contribution and the potential contribution according to the needs of each task group. So I will now stop the Menti, but I will continue sharing my screen to show the collaborative notes. So please also everyone, please go to the note. Yes. Oh, I can see already there are a lot of input here. So we would like to know, so based on the introduction you heard today and based on the previous discussions happened so far, please help us to identify some existing relevant resources for each task group. So they could be either other working groups or other output from other institutional groups or initiatives. So anything you think is related, this task group should be aware of, please help us indicating here. It's also interesting if there, for some group, if there's no related relevant resources identified, that could be that's really an emerging issue, and there is no prior work. That probably also indicates the usefulness and importance of the task group. Thanks so much for the input so far. If you have any recommendations or suggestions, please also feel free to indicate there. Even they are not a specific link or output, but that could also be good ideas or inspiration for the task group. So please feel free to add different types of relevant resources there. So everyone's not just knowledge, but also ideas and vision is also very relevant and important resource for the work. That's a really nice thing about the community building. Also, this document will be open, so if you think of any other resources later, please feel free to add it. Even if it's not now during the plenary, but anytime later, please feel free to add it here or contact the task group directly by joining the Slack channel. Let's move also to the, let's just move to the next question, discussion point, which is also the last discussion point today. It's about, would you like to help with the task group? Because there was some needs from each task group on either feedback to their work or other types of needs they have. So please indicate if you like to get in touch with the task group, or if you like to help out of some specific task, add your contact information here, please. If you would like to join the task group, since it's your first time here, please also feel free to sign up. I see there's a very active input here. I'm sorry a little bit because it's supposed to be a discussion, but so far it has been one-way discussion. So I didn't know if there's any question or someone would like to talk about anything in the chat. Please feel free to either raise your hand or mention in the chat.
Jan, there's a comment from Marjolaine here. Marjolaine, if you'd like to speak, you're welcome to, or I can read it out for you.
Yeah, sorry. So essentially, I was looking, this comment was referring back to the first interest and the related interest that we just did before starting the input. I was wondering if actually one type of analysis that could be very interesting would be to, I don't know if that's possible depending on how the data is going to be linked through the website that was used, but if it's possible to kind of create groups based on who were first timers versus who had already participated in one of those related meetings, and see what were the different interests. I think there might be different interests regarding whether it was a first participation or not. And I think that could be really interesting to look at.
Yeah, that's a very nice question. Also, good idea. I'm just afraid, so for now with the Menti setting, it is hard to track the choices of, so there's a limitation in setting up the correlations between the answers in Menti questions. That's why we can only come up with the exercise to link between the task groups. But maybe in the next time, we can modify or tune the question a little bit. Yeah, I think we have to think about the technical solution for that question, but that's a very nice idea. Thank you very much. Is there any other question in the chat or raising hands? I can't see.
Actually, if you would allow me, maybe I would like to bring back the question that I had earlier. I'm just going to, which essentially was in regards to within a research team, for example, what could be like an appropriate background for data stewardship, or I'm actually very, very new to this. It's the first time I even attend any related meeting to data stewardship. So I know it's a very basic question, so I'm sorry if it's a lot of repeating of information people may already know. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind, maybe who would be someone who could be the most, I guess, prepared, or with like the best background.
Profit, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that actually is covered by one of the task group, either career track or job profile. I'm not entirely sure, but indeed the background, and so it's kind of a mixed challenge. So first is the background field of expertise, and then is what is preferred expertise in the job profile. So I think that's covered actually by maybe one or two task groups to that topic. So you can check the slides in the appendix. There's a bit more information of each task group, and that's actually indeed that's reflect on the exercise discussion we've been doing today to really find this dependency between the groups, because a lot of questions really is shared by different groups.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jan, maybe if I could add to that, maybe Marjolein, is this also a call to maybe for the networking group to make specific connections between new data stewards and current data stewards, to kind of do something like mentoring or something? It isn't explicitly in yet, but I think that is a low-hanging fruit, just connecting new data stewards or future data stewards with people who are willing to share some of their experiences on, like, I don't know, monthly basis or something, just meeting each other virtually. So that's something we might want to add as an easy outcome of the networking group, if it isn't in there yet.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
please.
Just quick point to Miga's point. There is an early career and engagement interest group that actually has, that is one of their goals, is to get new people involved, get new people matched up with older people, and have an entrance into data curation, into Research Data Alliance as a whole. So I'll put the link in the chat for that.
Great, thank you.
So I just want to quickly contribute as well. From the models perspective, from the group of the perspective of the group of the models, we talked about this a little bit, and it also has to do with scaffolding, depending on the institution, as well as what model is at work at a given institution. So you might have a context like, for instance, a domain repository, where you've got very highly trained, very specifically trained experts, in data science and data management, data curation of maybe a very particular type of data, and that's it. And then you might have, according to a different model, at work at a different institution, say for instance a university library, a model at work that is very open to it's very open in general. It's about generally talking to people and having conversations. It might be that you sort of slip into a role as a research assistant during a particular project, and then you've taken interest in it, and you might become interested in maybe in data librarianship and so on and so on. So it also just depends on the context in which you are either very much encouraged or don't find that encouragement to slip into a role like data stewardship, as broadly defined or as little defined as it is at the moment.
Thank you, Nicholas.
We have a question from Fiona. Are you adapting your approach because of COVID, or are you COVID agnostic? Fiona, I don't know if you want to unmute and expand on that.
Hopefully it's reasonably clear, Marsha, thank you. I guess it's partly around the timing of the group. I mean, obviously you've been thinking about it for a while, but if you like, certainly for me, it's come up with a bang. I suppose it would have been the March meeting. It sort of hit a lot of people, and now again, we're still here, if you like, still in our bedrooms. And I was wondering, yeah, if that was, if you were thinking about that as a long-term adaptation, or as, if you like, something that we need to be able to move around from, or ignore, or pick up other things later.
That's a very nice question, and I don't have a great answer for this. I don't know if my other fellow co-chairs can answer for that. From my side, I really see, I think COVID has a big impact on all the things, the way we work, and probably it will not be gone, or we can't really return to the normal until maybe mid next year, but that's really uncertain. Yeah, it's very hard to say how, what would happen in 1 year, but maybe others have better idea about how we can handle this, cope with the situation.
Yeah, maybe Jan, if I could add, so maybe two reactions. So first one is, I think, because we want to involve the global community anyway, we're just relying on those virtual meetings and events anyway. So it's going to be less physical if we want to include Asia, the global South. So that is one part of the answer. So I think we're virtual anyway, regardless of COVID. And the second one, I think, has to do with making maybe priorities. And that's another reason why we wanted to do those Mentimeter question that Jan just did. If we know what to prioritize, we can maybe together focus on the things that are most important to the bigger community and make sure that we don't stay in our bedrooms for those 12 hours a day instead of normally going to office for only 8 hours a day. So maybe it has to do with both priorities and taking into I think the nice parts of going virtually. There are good parts about that as well, the bigger community, for instance.
I see a very nice comment in the chat regarding COVID-19. So probably recommendations for employer provided infrastructure for remote data stewards could be also another topic for the group to come up with a recommendation list. I think that brings the very nice and interesting discussions, and that unfortunately we are at the end of the discussion part. So I will give the floor back to Deborah for the next steps.
So thank you, Jan. Just to make sure everybody hears me all right.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for the previous co-chairs for conducting the session. I think it was a great input from the community. We were looking forward to that. I will share my screen. Do you see it all right?
Yes, perfectly, Deborah.
So it was great to have all this feedback from the community, and we'll continue working for the prioritized topics. So we were very curious about what we would receive as a feedback today. The task groups work very much independently, and we have meetings to connect what the different task groups are doing. And it's interesting to see the connections from the several inputs that we got. So we're going to work on this interdependencies and on the all the material that we have got today. Report back to our task groups. Not everybody was able to join us today. And then we will start to draft the outcomes and ask for feedback. So we're planning to have a joint meeting to discuss this first output. We are also going to start the organization of the webinars. And we will, as I just said, work further on visualizing these interdependencies. It was, I think, a great job from our co-chairs to make this diagrams and all the Menti and everything that we prepared for you today. It will help us to visualize the interdependencies, and also we are looking forward to align to the several various stakeholders group inside and outside RDA. So we really are looking forward to having more participation from the community. So we are very much welcome to join us. It's a real community effort. In the notes, the shared notes, we have all the contact person to become actively involved. So if you prefer, you can just email any one of us, on one of the co-chairs or the task leaders. We also are very active at the Slack community. And any questions, idea, you want to collaborate, you're very welcome. There are several ways to contact us. I think we still have time for discussion or questions or input. So this last minute, if there is anything from the chat, I can see. Any co-chair would like to add to what I just said as looking for the future? There's someone raising hands.
I think I saw a raising hand from Orma.
Yes. So is there anything you consider out of scope for this interest group or the tasks at hand?
Oh, that's an unexpected question. I haven't thought about that. I don't know.
I have one answer just from the task group on models. During about what's in scope and what's out of scope, it seemed like a semantic thing, like a small thing. Sometimes the word semantic is used in English to put something down. I find it strange sometimes coming from German. But anyway, it was said that we shouldn't aim for a comprehensive list of models, but for something that sort of reasonably addresses who we can see or can identify in a sort of overview, would make most use of, sort of practical use of having a certain set of models. So I think, just to answer the question from the perspective of this work group, it's not about describing each and every single model that might exist in the world, but really the most used ones.
Yeah, if I maybe could add to that as well, I think it also matches to what Kevin added at the beginning. So to do the work in the different task groups, we have a lot of anticipated outcomes, very practical outcomes, potentially guidelines, lists, etc. But that only works if we have a large community to work with. So I think most restrictions are in the field of having enough people to do the work. So for that, we might indeed, that was not a reason to do all the work that Jan did with the Mentimeter. So if we get out our top 3 or something, we could maybe turn those top 3, particularly if they also heavily rely on each other or are like the basic work to be done for the other challenges, we could kind of turn them into formal working groups and, well, gain a bit of more visibility for those groups, get people working on that, and then also create very visible, recognized output. And then in the second phase, continue to work with a next set of 3 challenges. So we might want to, so that is part of the limitation. We might want to spread out a little bit over the time period and not trying to finish everything in 12 months.
Thanks, Mick.
Like, it's really difficult.
I'm not good at Dutch. So I don't know if there is some more questions, other hands raised.
If no one else wants to ask, I have one more question.
Go ahead.
And it's also kind of about scoping, but I'm thinking that there's kind of the domain specific parts, and then there's these kind of general parts of data stewardship. And I mean, in some fields, you really have to go into the technical nitty-gritty details to be useful. And other domains, I mean, the researchers will already kind of be proficient enough in the basic tasks, and they really need help with some advanced things like kind of security or massive data transfers or things like that. So are you actively trying to look at both of these types of data stewardships, or are you kind of focusing on the more common case?
Well, we are focusing, I think, in a very comprehensive way. So myself, my background's on ecology, and that's a good example on how a data stewardship must be very understand very much about the subject to really do a proper job. So the idea here is to have enough input for the several possible cases that you just mentioned. Some of domains will rely more on IT services than others will be more on the long tail, like ecology, most of times, not always, but requires different specialities. So I would say all of those are included. Does anyone else from the co-chairs would like to add?
Yeah, I think we didn't explicitly mention that we also seek active collaboration with different interest groups and working groups. For instance, the work that is currently being done in the Engaging Researchers group. So I kind of hope that they're willing to collaborate with us also in finding what, for instance, researchers need and what their main priorities are. Or for instance, the work on the co-data, data science and data stewardship schools. So I think that is one of the foreseen tasks that we are going to have some kind of, I don't know, kickoff session for different working and interest groups to see where we can make cross lines with our interest group and the efforts of other groups to make sure that we kind of in the most efficient way use any of the links and the outputs of the different and the audiences of the different groups. So maybe that also a bit connects to Walmart, to your question as well. So we're going to reach out to you in a different way as well to the different groups. Yeah. So I think if there aren't any questions anymore, and we're done taking notes and adding things to the chat, I want to thank you for your interest in today's session. Really nice to have so many people on board. Really looking forward to continue the work in our task groups, potentially working groups. And make sure if you have interest yourself or a colleague to sign up for our task, well, for our interest group, for the via the Slack channel, also read along with the actions of the different task groups, and make sure, yeah, we'll hope to see you in between or in the next few days in any of the other sessions, and of course, with regard to this topic, in the next plenary as well, and hopefully we have some output ready by that moment. So thank you for the co-chairs, for the presenters, for the note takers, and for the great audience, and enjoying the rest of your day and plenary.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.